Oh, hello, I didn't see you come in. Welcome to a video about states. That is a word that may not mean a lot to you right now, but you will be very happy to have met this idea of states by the time we're through, I think. So I'm going to talk about states by actually going through an example, because it's not an abstract idea, but it makes a lot more sense in practice than maybe it would if I just talked about it. In essence, it's a way that we can make our programs even more organized, and in doing so, we can actually make our programs kind of behave more like finished products, if you like. It's one of the big things that we can do. So let's go look at a program. Rather than type this in, I've just got a pre-made program. It's one of those circle moves from left to right programs. You can see we've got the standard circle definition. We've got a setup that creates the canvas and sets the circle in motion by setting its x velocity. And then in draw, we update the circle's position and draw the circle on the screen. Very, very standard stuff. A little bit of a boilerplate thing, but it gives us a kind of a basic animated program. So if I reload it, there is our friendly little circle making its way across the hard journey of the canvas and then onwards into infinity and possibly beyond. That's not really possible. Okay, so let's imagine that we're really happy with this program. I know I am. And we think, oh, I should release this into the world. I want to show it to my friends, my parents, the world at large. If we were going to do that, it's very likely that we feel like it's not kind of ready to be seen. And in particular, we'd kind of like to have a title screen where we give it an awesome title so that people know what they're getting into. And some kind of ending as well, so that there's some sense of a beginning, a middle, and an end of our program, if you like. And these are just kind of standard features of many programs, right? We have some sort of intro moment, then the program itself runs, and then we have some kind of ending moment. And obviously it can be significantly more complicated than that. But in giving this a beginning, a middle, and end, we'll have the tools to make it as complicated as we like. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, what we need is we need a title. There's sort of a time where our program is displaying the title. There's another time where it's displaying our animation, the circle moving, and there's another time where it is displaying an ending, right? So we can kind of do the basic idea, which is we can display a title. So let's display a title here. I'll even deign to write a comment. So we could write a title. We could say text size is whatever, 32. And now we can give it a title, right? The title is going to be, what's it going to be? Life. So it's going to be an animation that's about life, life's hard journey. And we'll display that, I guess, in the center of the screen, width over 2, height over 2. If we're going to do that, we should probably set the text align as well. And maybe rather than setting the text size right here, if I'm going to use the same text size for both the beginning and the end, maybe I'll set those things up here in setup. So I'll set the text size to 32, and I'll set the text align to center, just because that's what I'm going to use throughout this program. That way I don't have to repeat myself later on. These are just the setup. Basically, I'm setting up some defaults, right? So when I display the title, I should set a fill, I suppose. I'll set a fill just of white. So I set the fill to white, and then I display the title. The title of it is Life. And then if I want to display the ending, I guess I can display it down here. I guess we should say that this is the animation code here, the moving the circle and displaying it. And then the ending would be some more text. I could make that a different color maybe. Fill, what's an ending color? Maybe it's a kind of a gray color, 127, that'll do. And some more text. What's the ending? It's all over. That's pretty bleak, but there you go, and that can be displayed in the same position in the center of the screen, right? So then I've got a beginning, a middle, and an end in terms of what I want to display on the screen, right? I've got a title here, I've got an animation that's going to play here, and I've got an ending text that displays here. But the problem is that because they're all just in draw, they're all going to exist at exactly the same time, right? So if we go and look at our program, there's the circle. That's actually quite a cool effect just because of the layering there. We can see the title in the background, life. It's kind of hidden behind the ending text because of the layering, but it's all there at the same time. And I don't want all of these things to coexist. I want to display them one at a time when it's appropriate, right? I want there to be different states for my program to be in. And this is where that word comes from, right? Basically, there's a state of the program where it's displaying the title, so it should only display the word life. Then there's a different state of the program, which I should be able to switch to, where it is only displaying the animation of the circle moving, and I don't see the title or the ending. And then there's a third state, which is the ending state of the program, which is where it displays the words "it's all over" depressingly on the screen. And I want to keep those things separate. I don't want to display all of them at the same time. So how do I do that? That's the big question, right? The basic idea of states is not complicated. It's that we have different parts of our program that should be running at different times, and we distinguish between them. So what I do to do something like that, there's obviously, like anything, there's lots of ways of doing this kind of thing. I'm going to show you one fairly straightforward way. The state is clearly something that I want to keep track of. I want to know which state my program is in at any given time so that I can react appropriately. When I want to keep track of something like that, I know I need a variable. So I'm going to say, I'm going to have a variable. It's going to be called state. That's what I'm going to call it. It reflects the current state of my program, and I'm going to say it starts off as title. Now I'm using a string there, right? I'm doing that because it enables me to kind of name my states in something that's easy to read. You will see people programming who use numbers to represent their states, or they use constants, which are a kind of variable to represent their states. There's no really right answer to this. Using a string with just a word in it is a nice simple way to do it. That's why I like it. And I'm also just going to make a note that the possible states are title, animation, and ending. That's a good idea just because I'm declaring a variable that can have 3 possible values depending on what's going on. It's not a bad idea to remind myself when I declare the variable that there are 3 different possibilities. That just is a little bit of tidiness. So now I know that my program is meant to be in the title state, right? So if I go down here and I look at my code, I can already see that it's in the title state, but it's still, again, it's still going to display the animation. It's still going to display the ending. So how do I separate these things out? And here, conditionals come into play again. Conditionals are wonderful. So what I know is that I can start checking what is inside the state variable. And I can ask this question, and this is kind of a formula. If the state of my program is equal to, remember, 3 equal signs, if it's equal to the word title, which it is, we happen to know right now, then what I want to do is I want to do the stuff here for title, right? Let me just tab these in. I don't know what happened there. It's hideous. Okay, so if the state is title, then you should do this stuff. You should set the fill to white and you should write the text life. And then there's other things, right? Because the state could be 3 different things. I then say else. Otherwise, if it's not title but state is equal to animation, then I want to do something else. I want to do this stuff here, the animation code. Sorry, it goes down to here, which is move the circle and draw it. So let me cut that with Command X, paste it in here. So now we've handled 2 of our states. And let's add the final one, else. Otherwise, if it's not title and it's not animation, I could just do else because I sort of, in theory, I know that there's only 3. So if it's not those 2, it is the other one. But it's much better to be explicit here and say else if state is equal to ending, that's the final state that we could have, then I use this ending code here. Paste that in there. Now, we have suddenly unleashed a really wonderful kind of structure in our program. This is called state-based programming, I guess, if you like. People also call this kind of thing a finite state machine, but don't get too hung up on naming. What we've got now is we've got a little structure in our draw loop where it's only going to run particular pieces of code depending on what the state is. So if the state is the title, it's going to display the title. If it's not the title state, if state is not the title, it's not going to display the title, which is what we want. If the state is animation, it's clearly not title. So if it's animation, it's going to get to here, and it's going to display the animation on the screen. And that's going to keep updating for as long as the state is set to animation. And then if it gets set to ending, then it's going to do the stuff in here and not the other stuff. It's only going to do the stuff in this part of the if statement. It's going to display the ending text, right? So what do we see if we run this? Well, we can think about this as a computer. We know that we set state to title at the very beginning, so that's what it is. So when a computer gets to this if statement, it's going to check this first. Is state equal to title? Yes, it is. So it's going to do this stuff and not any of the other stuff. So we're just going to see the title. Let's go look at that. Voila, life. C'est la vie, etc. Ha ha ha. I shouldn't have done that. That's fine. So now it's working, right? We set the state to be the title, and our program only does the stuff that's inside the title part of our program. That is perfect. The thing that we're missing now is the ability to change between the states. That's really important, right? Now that we have states, our program only does one thing at a time. We now need to be able to say, okay, well, we're finished with the title. Let's move over to the animation. We're finished with the animation. Let's move over to the ending. So how do we do that? Well, we need to make something up. We need to decide when is it the case that we go from the title to the animation. When do we do that? There's all kinds of options. But let's say that we do it when the user presses down a key. So let's define a keypressed function. So they press down a key. What do we want to do if we want to go from the title state to the animation state? Well, we can look up here and we know that what we need to do is that we need to put the word animation into our state variable. That will cause the title thing, that won't work because it's going to be animation. And then this one will work, so it will start doing the stuff in here. So how do we do that? Just variable assignment. State is assigned the word animation. So they press a key and we switch to the animation state, and that means that we're going to start just doing this part of the if statement, not the title, not the ending. There's one extra thing that's really important to think about when you are doing states, this kind of state-based stuff. When they press a key, we don't know what state they're in. Currently, the way that we've written it, right? They could be in the title state, in which case this is the right thing to do. We should switch to the animation state. But what if they were in the ending state? Do we want them to be able to switch to the animation state from the ending state? I don't think we do. I think we thought that the key pressed option was only for switching from the title to the animation. So how do we ensure that? Before we change the state, we should check that the state is the title state first. So only if the state is the title state should we switch from title to animation. Right now, this little block of code is saying if the state is title, then we can switch to animation. But that's the only situation that we should do that in. So they press a key, we check if they're in the title state, and if they are, we can change across to the animation state. So let's go check if that works. So it says life here, nothing's happening because we're stuck in the title state. If I press a key, which I'm just about to, 1, 2, 3, doop, it switches across to the animation state and we see the circle start moving across the screen. That's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. And that's all happening, but partly because we've got this whole idea of only running the code for one state at a time. So when it's title, it only displays the title. And when it's animation, it only displays the animation. It starts on title, so it's doing this stuff in here at the beginning of the program. When I press a key, though, it checks, are we in the title state, which we are in that situation. Let's switch to the animation state by setting the state variable to animation. And therefore, in the draw loop, when we are running the draw loop, now that state is animation, we start doing this stuff. And therefore, we see the circle move across the screen. So that handles moving from title to animation. Well, how do we move from animation to ending? This is another open question, and it's a question of your vision for the program. I would suggest that one appropriate way to move from animation to the ending is that we should do it when the circle reaches the right-hand side of the screen, of the canvas, because then we can consider that's kind of this metaphor of life, right? You go from 0 over to the width of the canvas, and then you die, presumably, and go on to the afterlife or whatever it is that happens. And so we should check, has the circle reached the right-hand side? And if it does reach the right-hand side, that is when we can switch to the ending. So where would we check that? We'd check that inside the animation state, and we would say if, and we've checked this many times, if circle.x, which is the x position of our circle, is greater than the width, what should we do? We should switch to the ending state. How do we do that? We set the state variable to the word ending. So the animation is going to run over and over again for as long as the circle has not reached the right-hand side. It's going to keep going. When it does reach the right-hand side, it's going to set state to ending, and so the next time we get to draw, this part of the code is going to start working, because now the state is not title, it's not animation, it is ending, and so we can display the ending. So let's go and look at that. Life. life, oh life. I press a key to begin switching to the animation state, like that. The circle moves in the animation state, hits the right-hand side. That if statement that checked whether the circle's x was greater than the width is triggered. It sets the state to ending, and then thereafter in our draw we see the ending state being displayed. And so we have a fully formed program. We can now send this to our friends. We would probably want to include an instruction about, press a key to start the program. But now this is kind of a complete structure of a program. So that is literally, that's it. That's the power of states. It is super powerful as a structure to use in your programming. One last thing, just because we are good programmers who use functions now, our draw function is looking a kind of messy. Now it's got a little bit too much stuff going on in it. It would make a lot of sense if each of these bits of code that we run for each state was inside its own function. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to remove that code with cut, Command X, so that I can paste it later on. And I'm going to write a function called title that just runs the title state. So I'll put it down here after the draw loop function. I write that word first, then title, that's the name, empty parentheses, it doesn't need any information, curly brackets, and then paste to put my title stuff in there. Again, the program hasn't changed in terms of its functionality, but I think you can agree that this is easier to read. If state is equal to the word title, then run the title function, which will run the title state stuff. And we can do that for all of these, right? We can cut the animation stuff and make a function called animation, which can go underneath title, function animation. Same thing, paste in that code. So now the animation function has got all of the code needed to execute the animation state. And again, so if state is equal to the word animation, run the animation state. And one more time for the ending, let's make a function that's called ending. And we'll put that down here, function, ending, paste in the code. Now we've got these three functions, each one handles a different state of our program. So again, the magic of functions here, right? It's tidying everything away into these named areas, so it becomes much, much easier to say, I want to do something with the title, I want to make it look amazing or something. I know that I edit this function here. I want to do something different with the animation. I edit the animation function. I want to do something with the ending. I edit the ending function. And you could, of course, go further than this, and for instance, could change this. This could be a function called move, like we've seen before. This could be a function that says handle, handle circle going off the right-hand side. That's a terrible name, but you know what I mean. This could be changed into a display function to further break the thing down into functions. And those would be good ideas. I won't do it just to save us some time here. Okay, so now when we look at our draw and our sort of the top end of our program, we see we set a state, we set it to title, and then our draw is this very tidy looking thing. If the state is title, run the title state. If the state is animation, run the animation state. If the state is ending, run the ending state. And this is a structure you can use forever, right? This is a way of thinking about your program that is extremely powerful. We've seen all of the steps. You now have the ability. You could imagine adding like multiple endings, for example, where you have different ending states depending on what happens. You could have an instruction screen or an artist statement screen after the title if you wanted to. One animation could feed into the next animation if you wanted to, multiple little animation steps, or something completely different. The sky's the limit, really, with this kind of thing. There are other things that you can do with this idea of states. It's not just limited to controlling what your program is doing at this sort of top level. You can also use states, for example, to think about controlling the behavior of a single element of your program. You could imagine, for example, that you've got a circle and you want it to have different behaviors depending on what's going to happen. That circle could have, for example, a sort of a feeling safe state where it behaves one way, but if it switches into its nervous state, it behaves another way, and if it switches into its terrified state, then it behaves yet another way. And you could do this with exactly the same kind of idea. The circle could have a state, and it could behave differently depending on which state it gets set to. Okay, that's states. It's a super, super useful part of programming. You'll find yourself using it all the time, and in this instance, it's enabled us to make this beautiful program which is all about life and what life feels like. With a title, we press a key, we see the metaphor for life that is a circle moving across the screen, and then we see an ending. So it's wrapped up in a beautiful, very sophisticated package, I'm sure you will agree. And that is the magic of states. I hope you liked them. I love them. See you in the next video.